Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. Today's video is about DIY embellishments, and in fact this is part of the Counterfeit Kit challenge called Forgery on the 4th. So we are forging embellishments, and I was inspired by these wood buttons. I love wood buttons, but my stash is running low on them. And if you saw my kit video from just a couple days ago, you'll know that I was inspired by this piece of paper which has wood grains on it in smaller scales. And I'm going to use this wood paper to begin my forgery. So I really like the other side of the paper with the green, so I'm just going to cut off a portion of this paper and save that other side for more of my kit. And then from this wood paper, I'm going to punch a whole bunch of circles, and in fact I'm going to punch a whole bunch of rings, and I'm going to use scrap papers for the imagery that's going to go inside of these embellishments. So the first thing I start with is a 1/2 inch punch, and I just punch a hole in the middle, and then using a 3/4 inch punch, I eyeball centering it and create these rings. And now these aren't going to be perfect, they'll be a little wonky, but I found that when I've got them all said and done, the amount of wiggle room and how much they're off isn't really a big deal. So that is going to be the top layer of this embellishment, and now I need to punch out a whole bunch of filler layers, and I start off with this white cardstock. And I'm actually starting to have a little bit of a trouble with this punch, and I'm going to need to replace it because I think it's been dropped one too many times that it's not lining up quite properly anymore. So I'm just experimenting with how to get the most perfectly spaced rings, and this is where I decide that it doesn't really matter all that much. So these are all the layers. I've got a solid 3/4 inch circle, and then 2 to 3 of these filler rings, and then the top ring out of the wood grain paper. And as you can see, I've got them all lined up here, and the next step is to go ahead and get my imagery. Now it is kind of hard to find imagery that fits within this 1/2 inch circle punch. Of course you could make these embellishments larger if you want to, but I was really trying to go for that button look, so I wanted to keep them on the smaller side. So like I said, it was a little hard to find all the imagery that would work just well, and I pulled out pattern papers that I thought would work and had to set a lot of them aside. But what I found is if you have these sheets from the front of a collection pack of pattern papers, that often has scaled down images of the patterns inside, and that worked really, really well for making these embellishments. So don't throw away those, packaging sheets from packs of pattern paper. They can be used for embellishments later. I did find several floral prints that often have little patterns to them, so that worked pretty well as well. And that finishes up all the images I'm going to use for these little embellishments, and now it's just a process of layering them up. So I turned over my imagery layers so that I could glue on the back sides of everything. And I found that I could do 3 rows of these at a time without my glue drying too much on me. And I am just tapping glue onto the imagery layer and each of the ring layers. And you'll see in a moment how I am able to use the sticky quality of this liquid glue to help me along with this process. Yes, I did make a mess and a mistake. If you space these pieces out a little bit farther from each other, it will go much more smoothly than it did here because I was feeling kind of cramped. I kept touching things. So you take your bottom ring, get your image, and line it up pretty much in the center, and then you just kind of tap along on all these rings, and because that glue is still wet, you can easily squidge those rings around, and then I would kind of rotate them all around in case any glue squeezed out. That would even out the glue. And then I ran my fingernail along the inner edge of the ring to smooth out any glue that squidged out. So that really is it. It's pretty simple. It did make my hand a little tired to get all these rings punched, and next time I do this, I am going to create a cut file on the Cricut that will cut all of these rings for me. That way they'll be perfectly spaced, and I can get the outer rim of the ring even thinner for a much more button-like look. Now this last step is optional if you want to get that full kind of flare badge effect out of these buttons, and that's to top them off with a glossy product. And I'm using Nuvo Crystal Clear drops, and I'm just going to fill in that inner space with these drops, being sure to kind of overfill them just a little bit to get a little bit of a dome on there. And I keep my drops stored upside down so I don't have too many issues with bubbles, but if you do, just use a pin and kind of pop those bubbles. And here is a final look at what those embellishments turned out. Now, they're not perfectly like flare buttons, but I really like how they came out. I think they're interesting little embellishments on their own. So I hope you'll give this project a try. If you got something useful out of this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up because that really does help my channel. And I will be back on Wednesday with a haul/unboxing video of the new Pink Fresh Studio scrapbooking paper lines. So I hope you'll join me then.